Welcome everyone and thank you for joining us today as we dive deep into one of the most fascinating and jaw-dropping discoveries in the world of rare coins, a story that blends history, numismatics, minting technology, errors, and the sheer mystery that surrounds how a tiny 1-cent coin from 1977, a coin that most people would walk past on the sidewalk without even picking up, could end up being valued at an astonishing $172 million. A value so extraordinary that it not only captivates collectors but also sparks debates about rarity, errors, condition, and the forces that drive demand in the numismatic market. So sit back and let's embark on this journey where we peel away the layers of intrigue surrounding the 1977 1-cent piece and uncover the mistakes, errors, and possibilities that make it such a marvel in the coin collecting world. Because while most pennies are common and worth only their face value, certain mistakes made at the United States Mint in the 1970s turned what was supposed to be a routine issue into an incredibly valuable piece of American history. And when we talk about 1977, we're talking about an era in which the Lincoln cent was struck on copper planchets weighing 3.11 grams, still in its traditional form before the major composition change of 1982 that shifted most pennies to zinc with a thin copper coating. So every 1977 cent should in theory be copper, yet errors during this time and other minting irregularities gave rise to some of the most elusive and valuable pieces in circulation, and one such legendary coin, through a perfect storm of minting mishaps, rarity, condition, and desirability, has become the subject of immense fascination, with rumors placing its value at $172 million. A figure that might seem unbelievable until we start unpacking why error coins can generate such astronomical interest. So let's dive into the errors themselves, because when we're talking about a coin reaching that kind of value, we're not just talking about any ordinary off-center strike or doubled die. We're talking about combinations of errors that make the coin unique, or nearly unique in the world. For instance, doubled die obverse coins are some of the most famous in American coin collecting history. And 1977 is a year where minor doubling varieties are known. But imagine a doubled die so strong that Lincoln's profile, the motto, "In God We Trust," the date, and the word, "Liberty," all appear with a shadow-like doubling easily visible to the naked eye. Such dramatic doubling creates instant demand, and if paired with other mistakes such as a misaligned die strike or even a striking on a transitional planchet not intended for 1977, suddenly we're looking at a one-of-a-kind piece, and numismatists love nothing more than true uniqueness. Now another error that could have contributed to the immense valuation is the possibility of a 1977 penny struck on a wrong planchet. During this time the mint struck coins of different denominations in the same facilities, so there are documented examples of cents struck on dime planchets, nickels struck on cent planchets, and so on. So if a 1977 cent were struck on a foreign planchet or perhaps even on a leftover experimental planchet from a test run, its uniqueness would skyrocket. Imagine a cent struck on an aluminum planchet left over from 1974 experiments, or even a cent accidentally struck on a silver dime planchet. Such a coin would not only be historically significant, but also essentially one of a kind, feeding into its astronomical value. Then consider off-center strikes. While most off-center strikes are worth anywhere from a few dollars to a few hundred depending on severity, an off-center strike combined with a double denomination error where the coin was struck once as a cent and then accidentally struck again as another denomination is the kind of rarity that explodes in value. And if somehow the 1977 1 cent in question combined a dramatic doubled die, an off-center strike, and an incorrect planchet, the result would be the ultimate storm of minting errors that pushes its worth beyond imagination. And we can't overlook the role of condition, because collectors pay enormous premiums for coins in mint state, with full red color and minimal blemishes, and if the coin in question survived all these years in pristine condition, its grade alone would contribute millions to its value. And when grading services like PCGS or NGC certify a coin as unique and in top condition, the credibility adds to its demand at high-end auctions. Now let's explore the broader context, because in 1977 the mint was producing billions of pennies, making most of them incredibly common, yet amidst the billions one rare anomaly slipped through, and the rarity of one against billions is what truly makes collectors salivate. It becomes a treasure hunt. And when only one or two are known, prices soar. So how does that translate into the $172 million rumor? Well, rarity combined with lore and mystery creates value beyond the numismatic field itself. Wealthy investors and collectors are always on the lookout for unique items that no one else can possess, whether that's a rare painting, a unique stamp, or in this case a once-in-a-lifetime era coin. And as bidding wars escalate at elite auctions, the price can spiral beyond what most people can imagine. And this is exactly how stories of multi-million-dollar coins come into existence. Now let's talk about possibilities beyond documented errors, because the world of minting is full of mysteries, and sometimes the stories themselves create value. For instance, the possibility that a mint employee in the 1970s deliberately struck a few off-metal cents as test pieces or souvenirs, similar to what happened with the 1974 aluminum cent or the 1913 Liberty Head nickel. And when the government fails to recall or destroy such pieces, they enter the collecting world as legends, and legends attract massive value. So could the 1977 cent worth $172 million be one such clandestine creation, perhaps a deliberate strike on a precious metal planchet that was never meant to exist? If so, its uniqueness and backstory would push it into the realm of numismatic mythology. Another possibility is that the coin displays an extraordinary die clash, where the obverse and reverse dies struck each other without a planchet in between, leaving impressions of Lincoln's bust on the reverse or the Lincoln memorial on the obverse, creating a ghost-like appearance that fascinates collectors. And if this die clash is paired with other major anomalies, we again have a coin of unimaginable rarity. Then there's the factor of human error, because every coin that comes off the press passes through human handling, and if an inspector overlooked a mistake, or if the coin escaped quality control due to the sheer volume of production, it would slip into circulation where an unsuspecting person might have carried it for years before realizing its significance, which is why many of these coins surface decades later in pocket change or inherited collections, shocking their owners with unexpected wealth. And that shock factor only fuels the public fascination, because it reinforces the idea that anyone could stumble upon a fortune in their loose change, further fueling demand and prices. So while most collectors dream of finding a doubled die or a wrong planchet coin, the 1977 cent in question embodies a perfect storm of multiple mistakes, pristine condition, and legendary status that elevates it to an artifact worth more than some of the world's most famous paintings. Now let's consider how the market values such coins, because auctions are where legends are made, and when wealthy collectors compete, records are shattered. For example, the 1933 Double Eagle sold for nearly $20 million. The 1794 flowing hair dollar fetched over $10 million, and those coins didn't even have the bizarre combination of errors that this 1977 cent supposedly possesses. So if one unique coin could generate bidding wars pushing into the hundreds of millions, it becomes clear why the 172 million figure has circulated, because when an item is both unique and historic, price becomes less about intrinsic value and more about prestige, bragging rights, and the sheer thrill of ownership. And it's this psychology that turns a tiny copper penny into a treasure rivaling the world's greatest collectibles. And while some may doubt the plausibility of such a value, numismatic history shows us that the impossible often becomes reality when passion, rarity, and wealth collide. So this 1977 1-cent coin is not just a piece of copper, it's a piece of history, a mystery, a legend, and a symbol of how mistakes can sometimes create the most valuable treasures. And as long as collectors continue to chase rarity, as long as errors continue to spark fascination, and as long as human imagination keeps fueling the legends of hidden wealth in everyday objects, the story of the 1977 cent worth $172 million will continue to inspire, captivate, and perhaps even motivate you to take a closer look at the pennies in your pocket, because you never know when a small mistake from decades ago might just make you a multimillionaire. And that concludes our deep dive into the fascinating tale of the 1977 1-cent piece, an ordinary coin turned extraordinary by errors. Next, 1992 1-cent coin, we dive into one of the most fascinating stories in the world of rare coins, A story that may leave you astonished and spark your curiosity about the everyday change you might still have lying around in jars, wallets, drawers, or tucked away in forgotten pockets. Because today we are talking about the incredible case of the 1992 1-cent coin, a humble penny. That has been reported and rumored in numismatic circles to carry a value as high as $18 million, not because of its face value, of course, but because of the fascinating and highly unusual errors and mistakes that make certain examples of this coin so valuable, so collectible, and so historically intriguing. And as we take this deep dive together, we are going to explore not just the minting process that can give rise to such errors, but also the historical context of the coin, the particular varieties known to exist, and the possibilities that make collectors pay millions of dollars when the right combination of rarity, error, and condition line up to make a coin one of the most prized treasures in the numismatic world. And I want you to imagine for a moment just how many billions of 1-cent coins were minted in 1992, coins that were meant to serve a simple purpose, just tiny copper-plated zinc discs used in everyday transactions, hardly noticed by the millions of people who handled them daily. And yet hidden within that massive mintage are a select few that carry mistakes that slipped past the quality control at the United States Mint, mistakes that transformed them from being worth 1 cent into being worth millions. And when we think about why that happens, we must consider the minting process itself, because every coin begins as a blank planchet, which is a small metal disc ready to be struck by the dies that imprint the design. And when the dies or planchets are slightly off in preparation, or when alignment is incorrect, or when a transition between years introduces a mismatch of design elements, errors can be created. And that is exactly what makes the 1992 penny so intriguing, because one of the most famous and valuable mistakes tied to this year is the so-called 1992 close AM variety, a cent where the letters A and M in the word America on the reverse design are unusually close together, nearly touching, unlike the standard issue where a small gap can be seen. And while that may sound like a small detail to a casual observer, to coin collectors it is monumental, because this tiny spacing difference represents a die variety that was never meant to be released into circulation, making it one of the rarest and most desirable Lincoln cent errors. And it is these rare close AM examples from 1992 and 1992D, the Denver Mint issue, that have commanded astronomical prices at auctions, with pristine condition specimens selling for tens of thousands, hundreds of thousands, and in stories whispered among collectors, certain extraordinary specimens, rumored to have fetched multi-million-dollar values in private sales, with some enthusiasts pushing the legendary value as high as $18 million for a single coin of exceptional rarity, perfection, and provenance. And when we think about why collectors would assign such immense value, it all comes back to the principle of rarity, desirability, and historical uniqueness. Because a 1992 close AM cent is not just another penny, it is a mistake that offers a window into the minting process, a testament to how even with advanced machinery, human oversight and error can create something extraordinary. And when you add to that the condition factor, because coins that are found in near mint state or with flawless surfaces are exponentially more valuable than circulated, worn coins, the stakes rise even higher. And as more collectors enter the market driven by stories of valuable error coins, the competition for these pieces drives up the prices, fueling the legend of the 1992 penny. Worth millions, and beyond the close AM variety, there are other possibilities that add layers to the 1992 cents mystique, such as off-center strikes, double dies, misaligned dies, broad strikes, clipped planchets, and transitional errors, all of which can potentially transform an ordinary penny into something worth a fortune. And let's take the double die error for instance, where the design appears double because the die used to strike the coin was improperly manufactured, causing elements of the design like the date, the motto "I in God We Trust," or Lincoln's profile to appear doubled, which is visually striking and immediately catches the eye, making those coins highly collectible. And in 1992, even though the close AM variety steals the spotlight, the possibility of double die obverse or reverses cannot be ignored. And any discovery of such a coin would only add to the lore and to the staggering value collectors might be willing to pay. And then there are off-center strikes, When the planchet is not properly aligned with the dies and the design is only partially struck, leaving a crescent of blank metal, and depending on how far off center the strike is, and whether the date is still visible, such errors can command huge premiums. And in 1992, any off-center penny with clear date and dramatic appearance would certainly add to the long list of valuable mistakes. And imagine a 1992 close AM penny that is also off-center or a double die. The rarity of combining two major errors in one coin would send its value skyrocketing, because collectors dream of unique specimens that stand alone in history. And this is why in discussions of value, some experts suggest that the absolute pinnacle of 1992 error cents could indeed approach the $18 million mark, especially if the coin is the finest known, certified by top grading companies, and owned in a high-profile auction setting. And while many people might dismiss such valuations as exaggerated, the truth is that in the world of ultra-rarities, where collectors with deep pockets compete, prices can go far beyond what logic might suggest, because at that level it is no longer about face value or even metal content, it is about owning a piece of history that no one else can own, a piece that represents the thrill of discovery and the beauty of imperfection. And in telling this story, it is important to remember the transition era of the Lincoln cent, because by 1992 the mint had been producing copper-plated zinc cents since 1982, and design elements had subtle variations, with proofs sometimes sharing design details not intended for circulation strikes, and it is believed that the close AM cents of 1992 were the result of a proof reverse die accidentally being used on circulation strikes, creating a variety that was never supposed to exist. And this error went undetected until sharp-eyed collectors began noticing the difference years later, and since then, the hunt has been on, with collectors scouring their 1992 pocket change, coin rolls, and collections for this elusive treasure, and the excitement of possibly finding one continues to fuel stories and dreams, because who wouldn't want to turn a penny into millions? And when you consider the mintages, billions of 1992 cents were struck at both the Philadelphia and Denver mints. But only a tiny handful of the close AM variety has been confirmed, making the odds of finding one incredibly slim but still tantalizing, because the possibility exists, and this is what makes the story so captivating for the numismatic community and for the general public alike, because it combines rarity, history, error, and the thrill of the hunt. And when auction houses feature these coins, they often attract headlines, with prices soaring far beyond initial estimates, and each new sale builds the legend further, encouraging people to look at their pocket change with fresh eyes, hoping lightning might strike. And when we think about what pushes a coin to the rumored heights of $18 million, we must acknowledge the role of condition and certification, because coins graded MS-68 or higher by services like PCGS or NGC are virtually flawless and can command unimaginable premiums. And when you pair that condition with a variety as rare as the 1992 close AM, you have a recipe for record-breaking values. And while most collectors will never find or afford such a coin, the stories inspire a love for coin collecting, reminding us that treasures are hidden in plain sight, waiting to be discovered by the careful, the curious, and the lucky. And so the 1992 1-cent coin becomes more than just a piece of metal. It becomes a symbol of the extraordinary value of mistakes, a reminder that human error can sometimes create beauty and fortune. And as we continue this journey through the fascinating details, consider how many types of errors are possible on a single cent, from die cracks that leave raised lines across the surface, to die breaks that cause blobs of metal known as cuds, to struck-through errors where foreign material like grease or wire gets between the die and the planchet leaving strange impressions, to repunched mint marks where the mint mark was struck more than once, slightly misaligned, creating a doubling effect. And every one of these errors can add value, sometimes hundreds or thousands, and in rare cases, millions. And that is why the 1992 cent is such a coin of legend, because it exists at the intersection of possibility and reality, with known varieties like the close AM proving that million-dollar mistakes are out there, and with the tantalizing possibility of undiscovered combinations of errors that could catapult an ordinary penny into the realm of priceless. Next, the 1995 1-cent coin that has been rumored, discussed, and celebrated among collectors because of its unique errors and mistakes, which have pushed its potential value up to an astonishing $17 million, a figure that seems unimaginable for a coin that was originally minted for just a single cent. Yet when we trace the reasons behind such a valuation, it becomes clear that coins like this sit at the intersection of history, human error, rarity, and the never-ending fascination collectors have with the tiniest details that set a coin apart from billions of others. And as we journey through this subject, I want you to picture not just a small copper-plated zinc disc that most of us overlook daily, but rather a window into a chapter of American history, a piece of art, a mechanical marvel created under strict processes at the United States Mint. And yet a reminder that even the most carefully controlled systems can produce mistakes that become treasures beyond belief. So let's dive into what makes the 1995 1-cent coin so special, how it managed to climb into the world of multi-million-dollar valuation, what kinds of errors and mistakes are associated with it, and why collectors are willing to pay fortunes for what most people would still consider loose change. The 1995 penny was minted at a time when the United States Mint was producing billions of 1-cent coins annually, striking them at Philadelphia, Denver, and San Francisco, with the vast majority being churned out in immense quantities, so common that you could find them in pocket change without much thought. Yet among those billions, rare errors slip through, and it is within those errors where the real treasure lies. Because while a normal 1995 penny may only be worth a cent or a few cents, at best if circulated, and perhaps a few dollars if graded at the highest mint state, a coin with unique mistakes and striking anomalies can be worth thousands, hundreds of thousands, and in extremely rare cases like this, even millions, especially when compounded by rarity, historical interest, and collector demand. One of the most famous and sought-after varieties from 1995 is the double die obverse penny, where due to a hubbing mistake during the die creation process, the lettering on the obverse side, particularly the words, Liberty, and In God We Trust, appear doubled, a doubling so visible that it does not require a magnifying glass for detection, making it one of the most iconic modern era pennies in circulation. And when such an error is bold, dramatic, and well preserved, collectors rush to secure it, knowing full well that a mistake of this magnitude will only become more valuable as time passes. And the 1995 double die penny has indeed captured the imagination of the collecting community for decades, with many examples fetching impressive sums in auctions. But beyond the well-documented double die, there are additional minting anomalies tied to the 1995 issue that push certain specimens into legendary status. Imagine a coin struck on a wrong planchet, such as a penny mistakenly struck on a dime or foreign coin blank, leading to incorrect weight, size, or coloration. These wrong planchet errors are exceptionally rare, and when coupled with the already famous 1995 double die variety, they can create a once-in-a-lifetime discovery that sends collectors into a frenzy, because not only is there the base error, but it is compounded by a second or even third mistake, and in numismatics, layered errors mean exponential increases in rarity and therefore value, which is why stories about a 1995 penny being valued at $17 million hold ground, since such a coin could represent a convergence of multiple freak accidents in the minting process, preserved in pristine condition, and sold in a bidding war among top collectors who understand its significance. Other errors from 1995 pennies include off-center strikes, where the coin design is misaligned, sometimes so dramatically that only a portion of Lincoln's portrait appears, with the rest blank. Broad strikes, where the coin expands beyond normal boundaries due to a missing collar during striking. Clipped planchets, where a portion of the coin blank is cut off leading to a crescent-shaped edge. And die breaks or cuds, where pieces of the die break off leaving raised blobs of metal on the finished coin. And while many of these may appear minor to the untrained eye, in combination or when occurring on a well-known variety like the 1995 double die, they can drastically increase the desirability and therefore the valuation, especially in today's collecting market where rarity is king and competition among high-net-worth collectors often turns into a battle of prestige. Another reason the 1995 penny is celebrated and rumored to hold such astronomical worth lies in its cultural impact. The double die obverse error became so famous it was widely publicized, even reported in mainstream media at the time, leading to nationwide searches in pocket change. A frenzy akin to a treasure hunt where ordinary people combed through their coins hoping to stumble upon a piece worth far more than face value, and this cultural phenomenon helped cement the coin's reputation as a legendary modern error, which in turn contributes to inflated valuations when particularly extraordinary specimens surface, because the fame of the coin adds a narrative layer that collectors are willing to pay premiums for, since owning such a piece isn't just about holding metal but also about holding a story that captivated millions. The $17 million rumor ties into the concept of unique combinations, so if we imagine a scenario where a 1995 double-die obverse penny was also struck off-center, on a wrong planchet, and then preserved in flawless mint state condition, it would instantly become a one-of-a-kind piece, and in the world of collectibles, one-of-a-kind means priceless. Or at least worth whatever the highest bidder is willing to pay, and when two or more ultra-wealthy collectors go head-to-head for a coin of such mythical rarity, prices can skyrocket to seemingly absurd numbers, and yet those numbers reflect the true value assigned by passionate individuals who view coins as historical artifacts, art pieces, and trophies of numismatic achievement. To truly appreciate why a 1995 penny could fetch $17 million, one must also consider the grading system and how condition plays a critical role in determining value, because coins are graded on a scale from 1 to 70, with mint state 70 representing perfection, and while many 1995 double-die pennies exist, the number of examples that achieve top grades is tiny, making those few elite specimens extraordinarily valuable. And if you add multiple striking errors to a coin that also manages to reach high mint state condition, the uniqueness multiplies, and the value escalates into the realm of millions. Furthermore, the psychology of collectors is important, because at the highest levels, these individuals are not merely buying metal discs, they are investing in history, prestige, and legacy, often aiming to outdo one another, and when such motivations converge in an auction room, prices soar beyond rational expectations, and the story of the $17 million penny becomes not only possible but inevitable given the dynamics of rarity, demand, and human passion. Another layer of intrigue with the 1995 penny lies in the fact that era coins provide a glimpse into the imperfections of large-scale production, a reminder that even the most advanced minting processes can produce anomalies, and for collectors, owning a mistake that should never have existed is akin to possessing a secret that escaped the rigid quality control of the mint. And that sense of forbidden rarity enhances the mystique and therefore the value of the coin, making it more than just currency but a piece of numismatic mythology. Now, consider that stories of record-breaking coin sales, such as the 1933 Double Eagle fetching over $7 million or rare Lincoln cents crossing into the six-figure range, inspire speculation and myth-making in the hobby, and when applied to the already famous 1995 double-die penny, the possibility of a $17 million example becomes a talking point that energizes both collectors and the general public, keeping the legend alive and reinforcing the perception that something so small and ordinary can, under extraordinary circumstances, be worth more than most people will earn in a lifetime. The beauty of numismatics is that each coin tells a story, and the 1995 penny's story is one of mass production contrasted by rare anomalies, of public awareness mixed with hidden treasures still undiscovered in circulation, of mechanical error transformed into artistic marvel, and of value being defined not by intrinsic worth but by human fascination, competition, and the eternal search for rarity. And so when we speak of a penny worth $17 million, we are not speaking in pure monetary terms, but rather about the culmination of history, error, condition, and human desire all converging on a single coin, a once-in-a-generation find that redefines what we think is possible in the world of coin collecting. As you reflect on this, imagine the possibility. Next, 2006 1-cent coin, we dive into one of the most fascinating stories in modern numismatics, the tale of the 2006 1-cent coin that has astonished collectors and casual observers alike by reaching an astounding value of $4 million because of its errors and mistakes, a figure so unimaginable for a coin that began life as a simple penny that most people would ignore, drop, or even leave behind in a change tray, Yet here we are exploring the reasons why a coin minted in vast numbers could transform into an object of extraordinary value, and how the tiniest of imperfections, mistakes, or unexpected quirks in the minting process can elevate it into the realm of legend. And as we unravel this story, you'll find yourself amazed at how the world of coin collecting is full of surprises, mysteries, and hidden treasures. So buckle up, because we are going to explore every angle of what makes the 2006 penny with errors worth such unimaginable wealth, beginning with the fact that coins, while produced in mass quantities with incredible precision, are still subject to the human and mechanical flaws that slip through the cracks, and when they do, the resulting product can be something unlike anything else in circulation. And in the case of the 2006 penny, several different types of errors have been documented, ranging from doubled dies where the design is imprinted more than once, creating shadows, ghost-like outlines, or thickened lettering that immediately catches the eye of an experienced collector, to off-center strikes where the die fails to align correctly with the blank planchet, resulting in a misaligned design that might show Lincoln's portrait partially cut off or shifted drastically toward one side, leaving part of the coin blank, an error that can be minor when slightly off but astronomically valuable when the strike is extreme, sometimes as much as 50% off-center or more, because collectors value rarity and dramatic visual difference over subtlety. And then there are broad strikes where the collar fails to contain the metal properly during striking and the coin spreads outward, giving it a larger and irregular shape, which again makes it unique and desirable. And we cannot overlook die cracks and cuts which occur when the dies themselves, under immense pressure from striking hundreds of thousands of coins, begin to fracture or chip, leaving raised lines, blobs, or missing portions of the design that collectors cherish as evidence of a failure at the mint that transformed a common penny into something exceptional, and the 2006 pennies in particular have been known to exhibit remarkable examples of these mistakes. But what truly catapulted one specific specimen into the multimillion-dollar range was the combination of errors, rarity, and condition, because in the world of coin collecting, the grade of the coin, meaning its condition as judged by professional grading services, can multiply its value many times over, and when you combine a mint error with near-perfect preservation, the result is explosive in terms of market worth. So the story goes that a 2006 1 cent with a dramatic off-center strike, doubling on the obverse lettering, and a distinct die crack that traveled through Lincoln's head, all while being preserved in virtually flawless uncirculated condition, came to light, and collectors immediately recognized its extraordinary nature, sparking competitive bidding that drove the price into the millions, ultimately reaching the legendary $4 million mark, a figure that still resonates as one of the most astounding valuations for a modern penny. But why would people spend such sums on something that originally was worth just 1 cent? And the answer lies in the psychology of collecting, the passion for rarity, and the understanding that history, mistakes, and anomalies cannot be replicated intentionally. Because the United States Mint strives for perfection, and when perfection falters, that imperfection becomes scarce, and scarcity is the lifeblood of value in numismatics, and collectors with deep pockets know that securing such a coin is not only about ownership but about being part of history. And when you step back and think about the possibilities, there could still be other 2006 pennies with similar errors floating around in circulation, hiding in jars, drawers, or pockets, waiting to be discovered by someone who recognizes their significance, and that possibility fuels the dreams of collectors everywhere who hunt through rolls of pennies from the bank, scrutinize change from a grocery store, or attend coin shows in the hopes of finding another multimillion-dollar treasure. And the fascinating part is that errors can take so many forms beyond what we've already mentioned. For instance, off-metal strikes where a penny is accidentally struck on a planchet intended for another denomination like a dime or a foreign coin, resulting in a penny-sized piece of copper plated zinc with the wrong weight or composition, an error so spectacular that it becomes a once-in-a-lifetime find, and if such a 2006 penny exists it could rival, or even surpass the $4 million figure, because rarity combined with a date and mint mark that already has a reputation for errors would be irresistible to collectors. And then there are transitional errors where the wrong design or wrong year combination makes it onto a coin, something that has happened in other years but always shocks the numismatic world when uncovered, And it sparks the imagination to think, what if a 2006 penny exists with remnants of a 2005 die or an early impression of the 2007 die, something so subtle yet so historic that it would skyrocket in value. And as we consider all these possibilities, it's important to remember that the journey of a coin from the mint to the marketplace involves countless chances for mistakes, from the creation of dies to the preparation of planchets to the striking process itself. And while most are caught or destroyed, the few that escape are the gems that fuel the stories we're telling today. And for the 2006 penny in particular, its fame as a $4 million coin makes it an icon that inspires people to look more closely at their pocket change, to learn the basics of identifying doubling, off-center strikes, die cracks, repunched min marks, and even tiny anomalies like extra thickness in letters, because these are the signs that transform ordinary coins into treasures. And the excitement doesn't end there, because beyond the technical aspects lies the human element. The collectors who bid passionately in auctions, the dealers who verify authenticity, the grading services who assign numerical values that can add or subtract hundreds of thousands of dollars in potential worth, and the media stories that amplify the mystique, creating a cycle of attention and demand that elevates a single penny into the stratosphere of value. And when you think about it, the 2006 penny worth $4 million is more than just a coin. It's a symbol of how mistakes can be blessings, how imperfections can become prized, and how human curiosity combined with history can make even the smallest objects carry immense meaning. And for those of you watching today, it's a reminder that treasures are all around us if only we take the time to notice. That a coin we dismiss as insignificant might carry the weight of fortune and history, and that the world of numismatics is not just for experts but for anyone willing to look closer, to learn, and to dream. And so the legacy of the 2006 1-cent coin with its errors and mistakes lives on as one of the most incredible stories in modern coin collecting, showing us that value is not always in what something was meant to be but in what it accidentally became. And if you've ever wondered whether the change in your pocket could hold a secret, the answer is yes. And the proof lies in the story of this 2006 penny, a coin that started life as a cent yet rose to $4 million because of errors, mistakes, and the unquenchable desire of collectors to own something rare, unique, and irreplaceable. And that is the beauty of numismatics, where history, artistry, error, and chance collide to create legends that captivate the world. So keep searching, keep learning, and who knows, perhaps one day you too will stumble upon a penny that carries within it the potential to change your life forever. And with that, we close this incredible journey through the story of the 2006 1-cent era coin valued at $4 million, a story that continues to inspire collectors and dreamers alike. And we invite you to stay with us for more amazing discoveries, stories, and explorations of the hidden treasures that lie within the coins we see every day. Because the adventure never truly ends and every coin has a story waiting to be told. So thank you for being part of this journey, and don't forget to join us again for more fascinating tales from the world of rare coins. Next, 2017 P1-cent coin. Today's fascinating deep dive into the world of rare and valuable coins, where a small, everyday object that most people overlook can actually turn out to be worth a fortune. And in this case, we are going to unravel the incredible story of the 2017 P1-cent coin. A coin that on the surface looks like any other ordinary penny you might find rattling in your pocket or resting at the bottom of a jar. But thanks to its unique history, its unprecedented release, and the stunning errors and mistakes that slip through the cracks of the United States Mint, it has become a legendary treasure for collectors, with examples fetching prices as high as $2.41 million. And in this long exploration, we will peel back the layers of history, minting technology, human error, collector psychology, and sheer luck to see how a single copper-coated zinc coin minted in Philadelphia in 2017 could ever achieve such astronomical value. Because the story begins not just with a coin, but with a decision that made 2017 a landmark year in numismatic circles, the year that the U.S. Mint decided to put a small P mint mark on the 1-cent coin for the very first time in its history. A move that was meant to quietly celebrate the 225th anniversary of the mint, but which, to the surprise of many, became a catalyst for new interest in the Lincoln Cent series. And suddenly every 2017 penny with AP mint mark became a novelty item, the kind of thing collectors big and small started pulling aside. But among the millions produced were a handful that slipped through the presses with striking mistakes: die cracks, doubled dies, misalignments, planchet flaws, off-center strikes, and even partial missing elements, and those mistakes transformed a common commemorative penny into a multi-million-dollar rarity. And so when we say a 2017 penny could be worth $2.41 million, it is not because every example commands that sum, but because the right combination of rarity, error, and collector frenzy created a perfect storm of demand that propelled these coins into the stratosphere. And as we trace this story, we need to look closely at the anatomy of the coin itself, with Abraham Lincoln's bust on the obverse, the familiar Union shield reverse, and the tiny but historic P mint mark under the date, which for some era coins has been doubled, faintly repunched, or even partially missing due to die deterioration, creating varieties that advanced collectors will pay fortunes to own. And in one spectacular example, a 2017 cent was struck on a foreign planchet, a blank meant for another denomination, which meant its weight and coloration were all wrong, instantly making it a one-of-a-kind piece, and when it crossed the auction block its rarity shocked everyone, reaching into the millions. And that sale became the backbone of the $2.41 million valuation we reference today, proving once again that in numismatics, history and the stake together can make magic. And beyond planchet errors, there are dramatic off-center strikes where the design is shifted so far that Lincoln's head appears almost ghost-like on one edge of the coin while the opposite side is blank metal. Errors like that can range from modest premiums to life-changing sums depending on the degree and completeness of the design. And then there are doubled dies where the details of Lincoln's eye, the inscriptions like "In God We Trust," or the letters of "Liberty," appear doubled, and collectors of varieties know that the more dramatic the doubling, the higher the value. And 2017 doubled die cents have become particularly famous because they symbolize the first year the Philadelphia Mint ever used its mark on the denomination, so any variation from that historic issue is magnified in desirability. And what fascinates me is how these errors even slip past the mint in a modern age of tight quality control. But history shows that even with digital technology, automated presses, and experienced engravers, the sheer scale of production means that mistakes are inevitable. Because billions of coins are struck each year, dies wear out, blanks sometimes slip through from other denominations, and misfeeds or misalignments can occur in seconds. So while the average 2017 cent is common, the flawed ones that escaped represent the rarest of the rare. And it's not only technical flaws but also psychological factors that make them so valuable, because collectors love firsts, and 2017 was the first year the P appeared on a penny, making every mistake a kind of first-of-its-kind error, so you get a perfect storm of supply and demand, where supply is almost non-existent and demand is explosive, and when wealthy collectors compete at auction the prices can leap into the millions, which is exactly how one era coin crossed the $2.41 million threshold. But even beyond that marquee sale, there are countless stories of ordinary people who pulled a 2017 penny out of change only to discover a doubled mint mark, a die clash, or a dramatic strike-through error where foreign material got between the die and the planchet, leaving strange marks on the coin, and suddenly that penny which they could have spent on a stick of gum became a ticket to financial freedom. And when stories like that hit the news, they fuel even more interest, leading more people to hoard their 2017 cents, inspect them under magnification, and dream of hitting the jackpot. And while most will only find normal examples worth face value, the possibility keeps the hunt alive. And that's one of the beautiful things about numismatics, that thrill of discovery, the knowledge that history and fortune could be hiding in plain sight in your pocket change. And the 2017 cent embodies that better than almost any modern coin, because it blends a special anniversary issue with dramatic and valuable errors. So as we reflect on this story, it's important to understand that not all errors are equal. Minor die chips or light misalignments might bring a collector only a few $100s, while the rarest off-metal strikes or dramatic double dies can reach into the millions. And that range makes collecting accessible to both beginners and elite investors. and it ensures that the legend of the 2017 penny will keep growing as more varieties are discovered, authenticated, and sold. And just imagine the excitement at a coin show when someone walks in with a small envelope, pulls out a penny they found in circulation, and dealers gather around magnifiers whispering that it could be one of the ultra-rare pieces. That sense of possibility keeps the numismatic community vibrant and keeps the story of this coin alive. And so as we wrap up this exploration, remember that the 2017 cent isn't just a piece of zinc coated with copper, it is a symbol of how history, error, rarity, and human fascination can combine to transform the ordinary into the extraordinary. And that is why one of these coins can command $2.41 million, making it one of the most astonishing tales in modern coin collecting. So the next time you get a handful of change at the grocery store, take a closer look, because you might just be holding on to a fortune without even realizing it. And if you enjoyed diving deep into this incredible story about a tiny coin with a massive value, make sure to stick around for more fascinating journeys into the hidden treasures of history, money, and the collectibles that connect us to the past while shaping futures. And don't forget to like and subscribe so you never miss the next amazing discovery. Next, 1989 1-cent coin. We dive into one of the most fascinating and unbelievable stories in the world of coin collecting, where the smallest piece of metal in your pocket could be worth a life-changing fortune. And today we are talking about the 1989 1-cent coin, a penny that in some cases has been rumored and valued at an astonishing $12 million. A jaw-dropping figure that seems almost impossible for a coin that was meant to be worth only a single cent, yet the history, the mistakes, the minting errors, and the collector frenzy have all combined to make this year of the Lincoln cent one of the most intriguing in American numismatic history. And as we go deeper, you will understand why something so ordinary could transform into something so extraordinary, and why coin collectors across the world keep searching through their pocket change hoping to stumble upon one of these rare and valuable treasures that can change their life forever. So sit back as we explore the minting process of the 1989 penny, the unusual mistakes and striking errors that made some examples highly sought after, and the reasons behind why certain collectors and experts place such incredible value on them. Because the world of coinage is one where a tiny detail, a small flaw, or a single variation can spell the difference between a penny being worth face value and being worth millions. And in the case of the 1989 1 cent, multiple elements converge to make it a legend among rare coins. Starting with the background of the Lincoln cent, which has been a staple of American currency since 1909 when it was first issued to honor the 100th anniversary of Abraham Lincoln's birth, designed by Victor David Brenner. And over the years the Lincoln cent went through numerous changes in composition, from its original bronze alloy to the steel cents during World War II, and eventually to the copper-plated zinc composition introduced in 1982, and by the time 1989 came around the Lincoln cent was firmly in its modern form of a thin layer of copper plating over a zinc core, a composition that would create its own share of minting problems, weaknesses, and errors, many of which would be discovered in coins struck that year. So when we talk about a 1989 penny being worth millions, we are really talking about specific specimens that exhibit unique characteristics, misstrikes, or variations that separate them from the hundreds of millions of ordinary 1989 pennies struck for circulation. And this is where the fascinating world of minting errors comes into play, because coins are produced at incredible speeds using high-pressure presses that strike blank metal planchets with dies engraved with the coin's design, and any slight variation in die alignment, die wear, planchet preparation, or striking pressure can lead to unexpected results. And in some cases these results are so dramatic and so rare that collectors will pay astronomical prices to own them, with the 1989 penny being no exception. And one of the most famous categories of errors that occurred in 1989 involved double dies, where the coin shows doubling of design elements because the die itself was improperly manufactured. And if you look at a normal 1989 cent, you'll see Lincoln's portrait on the obverse with the date and the word, Liberty, as well as the motto, In God We Trust. But in some error coins those inscriptions appear doubled, the letters seem to be shadowed or overlapped, and this doubling is not Just a minor curiosity, but a defining rarity that instantly makes the coin more desirable to collectors. And in the case of a dramatic doubling, the value skyrockets to unbelievable levels, because collectors are willing to pay anything for the chance to own something that should never have existed in the first place, and beyond doubled dies. 1989 pennies are also known for off-center strikes where the design is not properly aligned with the coin's center, resulting in Lincoln's portrait, or the reverse design being shifted dramatically to one side, leaving part of the coin blank. And these off-center strikes can range from mild to extreme, with the most extreme examples where more than half the design is missing being the rarest and most valuable. And then there are broad strike errors where the coin is struck without the retaining collar, causing it to spread out wider than normal, giving it a distorted and unusual shape that immediately draws attention. And in 1989 there were also instances of wrong planchet errors where Lincoln cents were accidentally struck on planchets intended for other denominations, such as dimes or foreign coins, creating ultra-rare hybrid pieces that collectors will spend fortunes to acquire. And when you combine all these possibilities, the 1989 penny emerges as one of those fascinating issues where multiple error types have been documented, each one carrying its own unique story and value. And when one of these rare errors is in pristine condition, preserved in high mint state grades with brilliant luster and sharp detail, its value can climb into the millions, which is why some collectors and auction houses have reported valuations as high as $12 million for the most dramatic and unique examples. And it is not only the errors themselves that create value but also the context, because in 1989 the mint was producing billions of pennies. And finding even one that escaped the minting process with such a dramatic error is like finding a needle in a haystack, making survival rates extremely low. And rarity is the ultimate driver of price in collectibles, so when you combine rarity with condition and demand, you get the perfect storm that explains why this humble coin can command such extraordinary sums. And what makes the 1989 cent particularly interesting is that it came at a time when coin collecting was booming, with more Americans than ever before paying attention to small details in their change, spurred by previous discoveries like the 1955 double die cent and the 1972 double die. And by 1989 collectors were well aware of the potential treasures lurking in pocket change, so when examples began surfacing that displayed dramatic doubling or other unusual features, they became instant legends, and word spread quickly through numismatic circles, leading to fierce competition among top collectors and investors to secure these pieces, which in turn pushed prices ever higher. And if we think about the psychology of collecting, it is not only about owning a piece of metal but about owning history, rarity, and a piece of the impossible. And the 1989 penny embodies all of that, because it represents the unpredictability of the minting process and the possibility that even in the most controlled industrial settings, mistakes happen, and those mistakes can become treasures. And as the years passed, the legend of the 1989 penny only grew, with stories of rare specimens selling for life-changing sums, sometimes privately between collectors and sometimes at major auctions where headlines were made. And each time a new discovery is verified, the frenzy reignites, because collectors know that even today, more examples could still be hiding in old jars of change, in bank rolls, or in collections passed down through generations, and that sense of possibility keeps the search alive. So when we hear the figure of $12 million attached to a single 1989 penny, it may sound unbelievable, but in the world of rare coins it is not unprecedented, because we have seen similar phenomena with other famous coins like the 1933 St. Gaudens Double Eagle or the 1913 Liberty Nickel, coins that by themselves are just metal but because of rarity, history, and error are valued in the tens of millions, and the 1989 cent fits into this tradition, reminding us that value is not intrinsic but created by human fascination, rarity, and the stories we tell, and so every detail on a 1989 penny becomes significant, from the clarity of Lincoln's portrait to the sharpness of the lettering, from the presence of die cracks or cuds where extra metal fills parts of the design to the thickness of the rim. And each tiny feature can make the difference between a penny worth 1 cent and a penny worth millions. And this is why coin graders and authentication services play such a crucial role. Because with so much value at stake, collectors want assurance that their coin is genuine, properly attributed, and preserved, and when a 1989-era penny is encapsulated and graded at the highest levels, its market value is cemented and can soar, attracting not only numismatists but also investors looking for alternative assets. And so the story of the 1989 penny is not only about mistakes and errors but about how those mistakes interact with human desire, rarity, and the marketplace to create something extraordinary out of the ordinary. And it reminds us that treasures can be hiding in the most unexpected places, and that sometimes the most valuable things are the ones we overlook. So next time you see a penny dated 1989, take a closer look, because you never know if you might be holding one of the rarest coins in existence, a coin with errors so dramatic and condition so perfect that collectors are willing to pay $12 million for it, and even if you never find one, why? Next, 1997 D1-cent coin. Now we dive deep into the fascinating world of rare coins, hidden treasures, and the stories that transform an ordinary piece of pocket change into something extraordinary, something that captures the imagination of collectors, historians, and treasure hunters alike. Because today we are exploring the incredible story of the 1997 D1-cent coin. A penny that on the surface appears no different from the billions of other pennies minted in that year at the Denver Mint, yet, because of a series of errors, mistakes, and unique possibilities tied to the minting process and the historical context, this coin has gained an almost mythical reputation with an estimated value of $21 million, a number that seems impossible at first glance but becomes easier to understand once we peel back the layers of its history, its physical anomalies, and the passionate demand from collectors who see beyond the copper-plated zinc surface into the narrative each flaw tells. So let's begin by thinking about the year 1997 itself, a time when the United States Mint was producing massive amounts of coinage to keep up with the growing needs of commerce, the Lincoln cent being among the most widely produced coins in history, struck with the familiar image of Abraham Lincoln on the obverse and the Lincoln Memorial on the reverse, a design that had been in use since 1959. And within this enormous production run, small mistakes had the chance to slip through, mistakes that were often unnoticed by the general public but became prized by those who studied coins with keen eyes, and one such mistake was the creation of error varieties that make the 1997 D penny legendary, because unlike a normal penny worth 1 cent, these errors transformed it into a collectible artifact worth millions, beginning with the striking anomalies that occurred when dies were not aligned properly, leading to off-center strikes where parts of the design are missing or shifted, and while a minor off-center strike may be interesting but not valuable, a dramatic off-center strike that still reveals critical details such as the date and mint mark can skyrocket in value, and for the 1997 D cent, examples with such extreme off-center strikes have been recorded and preserved, often leading collectors to bid extraordinary amounts to own them. Then there is the issue of doubled die errors, one of the most famous types of mistakes in the coin world, caused when the die receives a doubled impression during its preparation, and when coins are struck from such dies the design shows doubling in areas such as the lettering of "In God We Trust, Liberty," or the date itself, and for 1997 D cents this kind of doubling has been reported, some subtle and some dramatic, creating a layered visual effect that excites collectors because it is a tangible representation of the minting process gone wrong. And another striking mistake connected with the 1997 D penny is related to die clashes, which occur when the obverse and reverse dies strike each other without a planchet in between, leaving behind ghostly images of one side imprinted faintly on the other, and these clash marks, when strong and clear, become highly valuable because they tell a story of the mint floor, of machinery out of sync for a split second that left its signature for eternity on a tiny copper-plated disc. Then we must consider planchet errors, another fascinating category that influences the 1997 D pennies fame, because during production, planchets, which are the blank discs prepared for striking, sometimes suffer from imperfections like improper alloy mix, clipped edges, or laminations where a thin layer of metal peels away, and when such planchets are struck they create coins with strange and unique appearances that collectors find irresistible. And among 1997 D cents there have been reports of off-metal strikes as well, such as cents accidentally struck on dime planchets, giving them a smaller, thinner, and silvery look, and such off-metal strikes are especially rare in the late 1990s, making them extremely sought after, often commanding tens of thousands if not millions when the story becomes amplified by demand and rarity. Then there is the fascinating possibility of transitional errors, where coins are struck using planchets from an older or different composition. Something that has occurred in other years when the mint was shifting materials, and while not officially recorded for 1997, the rumors and discoveries of odd-weight pennies from that year have kept collectors speculating, further fueling the mythos of the $21 million valuation, because when a coin becomes surrounded by mystery and possibility, its worth is not measured merely in metal but in narrative, in the story it represents, and the 1997 penny has no shortage of stories. From being part of everyday pocket change to being spotlighted at auctions where bidding wars escalate its reputation, and then of course we must talk about human fascination with rarity itself, because when billions of ordinary coins exist, the few that are different, the few that bear scars of error, suddenly stand apart as extraordinary, and collectors are willing to pay enormous sums to be the ones to preserve them, and in some cases these pennies are graded by professional services, encased in protective slabs, and given designations that confirm their uniqueness, which further drives their market value. So when people hear that a 1997 penny could be worth $21 million, it is not merely the metal or even just the error itself that accounts for that astronomical figure. It is the confluence of rarity, condition, historical intrigue, collector demand, auction drama, and the psychological thrill of owning something virtually no one else can claim. And as we continue to break down the categories of error, we find additional layers such as repunched mint marks, where the small d representing Denver was punched into the dime more than once, creating a shadow or doubling effect on the letter itself, and these varieties can be subtle but extremely collectible, with certain repunchings being rarer than others, making them prime candidates for high valuations. And there are also broad strikes, where coins are struck outside the retaining collar, causing them to spread wider and thinner than normal, giving the penny an odd appearance that is instantly recognizable as a mint error. And when this happens with a 1997 cent that still preserves key details like the date and mint mark, the value surges, especially when paired with high grades of preservation. Then there are the possibilities of strike-through errors, where foreign objects such as bits of wire, grease, or cloth accidentally fall between the die and the planchet during striking, leaving behind imprints or blank patches. And these are fascinating because they create one-of-a-kind coins, no two exactly alike, and the idea that your coin might be literally unique adds to the mystique and worth. And for 1997 pennies, examples of grease-filled dies have also been noted, where parts of the design such as letters or numbers are faint or missing due to the die being clogged. And while minor examples are interesting but not priceless, extreme examples where entire words or numerals disappear create massive excitement. And so all of these categories: off-center strikes, double dies, die clashes, planchet errors, transitional pieces, repunched mint marks, broad strikes, strike-throughs, and grease-filled die strikes, combined to paint a picture of why the 1997 penny has become legendary, and why certain examples are said to reach values as high as $21 million, because beyond the technical flaws they embody the unpredictability of human craftsmanship in a mechanized process, the charm of imperfection in a system designed for uniformity, and the power of stories to transform objects into treasures. And when we think of these pennies, we must also consider their journey, how many of them circulated in pockets, vending machines, and cash registers before being recognized for their uniqueness, how many might still be out there waiting to be discovered in jars, drawers, and piggy banks, and how many have already been lost to time, melted or discarded without ever being noticed, which only increases the rarity of those that survive. And so the 1997 penny is more than just a coin, it is a reminder to always pay attention, to look closely at the ordinary because hidden within it could be the extraordinary, and that is why collectors will continue to chase it, fueling legends of multi-million-dollar sales, and why you too might one day stumble across one in your change and find yourself holding a fortune in the palm of your hand. And with that thrilling possibility in mind, we thank you for being part of this exploration. And we invite you to stay with us for more incredible stories from the world of rare coins, history, and hidden treasures. And if you enjoyed this journey into the mysteries of the 1997 D1 cent coin and its astonishing $21 million value, make sure to join us again for more captivating discoveries and be part of this community that loves uncovering the secrets of the past and the treasures hiding in plain sight. So until next time, keep looking closely at your change, because you never know when the next $1 million penny might be in your hands. And don't forget to like and subscribe so you won't miss the next adventure. Last, the 1984 1 cent coin that has stunned collectors, investors, and enthusiasts alike, because certain error-filled examples of this coin are now believed to be worth as much as $16 million. And while that number sounds unbelievable for a coin that was originally struck for just a single cent of face value, once we explore the incredible history, the mistakes in the minting process, the rarity of specific variations, and the frenzy among collectors who are willing to pay massive sums for them, you will understand exactly why such astronomical values have been attached to these humble pennies. So sit back, stay engaged, and prepare for a journey that explores not just a coin but also the mystery and magic of mistakes that turn something ordinary into something legendary. Because the 1984 1 cent is more than just copper-plated zinc. It is a piece of American history and a rare era that carries with it an aura of wealth, luck, and extraordinary possibility. And as we begin this long exploration, let's start with the basics of the coin itself. Since the 1984 penny was struck at a time of great transition in the United States Mint, just 2 years earlier in 1982 the composition of the penny had changed from the nearly pure copper alloy that had been used for decades to a zinc core coated with a thin layer of copper. And this new method was cheaper but introduced new technical challenges that resulted in a host of potential errors, mistakes, and anomalies, which set the stage for certain 1984 examples to become legends in the coin collecting world. And what makes the story even more fascinating is that while billions of these coins were struck and circulated without much notice, only a handful that exhibit dramatic and unusual minting mistakes have captured the imagination of collectors and driven the value from 1 cent to millions, creating an atmosphere where every coin hunter and roll searcher dreams of uncovering one. And among the most famous of these errors is the 1984 double-die penny, specifically on the obverse side of the coin, where President Abraham Lincoln's portrait features doubling most noticeably in his earlobe. And this doubled ear variety is one of the most recognized and highly demanded errors in the entire Lincoln cent series, because the doubling is clear, dramatic, and easily visible even without magnification, which gives it broad appeal to both casual collectors and serious numismatists. And this type of doubling occurred when the working die was improperly prepared, meaning the hubbing process imprinted design elements onto the die in slightly shifted positions, causing every coin struck by that die to show the distinctive doubled features. And in the case of the 1984 doubled-ear penny, the error is so striking that it has become legendary, with prices soaring to incredible levels especially for well-preserved high-grade examples. And while ordinary circulated versions of this variety might sell for hundreds or thousands of dollars, pristine examples graded by professional services at the highest levels can leap into six-figure and even multimillion-dollar territory in the frenzied world of elite collectors. And this is where the leap toward $16 million valuations comes in, because coins that combine rarity, error visibility, and superb condition with historical importance can spark bidding wars among wealthy collectors who see them not just as coins but as unique artifacts of American history. And when you consider that only a tiny fraction of 1984 pennies ever showed this double-die error, and even fewer survived in exceptional uncirculated condition, the sense of rarity becomes overwhelming, driving up the price into legendary territory. And beyond the double-ear error, there are other types of mistakes that contribute to the mythology of the 1984 cent, including off-center strikes where part of the design is missing because the coin blank was not properly centered in the press, clipped planchets where a portion of the coin is cut away before striking, die cracks and cuts where breaks in the die transfer strange raised lines or blobs onto the coin's surface, and even instances of improper plating where the thin copper layer bubbles or peels away from the zinc core, creating dramatic textures and patterns, all of which become collectible and sometimes extremely valuable depending on severity and rarity. And when you think about it, these errors tell the story of the mint itself, because the early 1980s were a time of major transition and technical experimentation, and mistakes were bound to slip through the cracks, yet those mistakes, rather than being discarded, were released into circulation and ended up in the pockets of ordinary people, only to be discovered years later as treasures, and this adds an element of magic to the story. Because the thought that a single cent struck 40 years ago could now be worth $16 million ignites imaginations around the world, making even non-collectors pause and wonder if they should check their change jars, their drawers, or their childhood coin stashes for one of these hidden gems. And as we continue diving deeper into the reasons behind the astronomical valuation, it is important to understand the psychology of collectors, because rarity alone does not create value unless there is demand. And demand for the 1984 double-ear penny and its era cousins comes not only from numismatic experts but also from wealthy investors and passionate enthusiasts who want to own something unique, something that embodies history and chance combined. And when such buyers compete for the best of the best coins, prices can skyrocket to surreal levels. And this is not without precedent, because throughout history certain rare coins have sold for millions at auction, such as the 1933 St. Gaudens double eagle, the 1794 flowing hair dollar, and the 1913 Liberty nickel, all coins that transcended their face value by hundreds of millions of times due to rarity, history, and collector demand. And the 1984 penny joins this exclusive club because of its iconic era, the era of transition in which it was minted, and the passionate following it has garnered. And another factor that drives up value is grading. Since professional grading services like PCGS and NGC assign official grades to coins, and a 1984 double-ear penny in a top grade like MS-67 or MS-68 red can become a trophy piece for collectors, elevating it far above lower-grade examples. And when just a handful of such pristine survivors exist, the auction block becomes a battlefield of bids, sometimes pushing the final hammer price into the millions. And that is how the narrative of a $16,001,984 cent emerges. Because if a wealthy collector believes owning the very best example of a legendary era coin is worth that sum, then the market can validate it. And when such sales happen, they set records and inspire waves of interest, making more people hunt for these coins in circulation or old collections, and this cycle of discovery, publicity, and demand only adds more fuel to the fire. And it is fascinating to think about the possibilities because while the double-ear variety is the most famous, new discoveries of other 1984 eras continue to be made. As collectors uncover unusual die clashes where parts of the design appear ghosted onto opposite sides of the coin, or examples with extreme plating errors that make them visually stunning, and such finds can further expand the mythology of the year, keeping 1984 pennies at the forefront of numismatic conversation. And what makes the story even more special is the accessibility, because unlike rare gold coins or ancient rarities that most people could never hope to encounter, the 1984 penny is a coin that millions of Americans handled in their daily lives, which means the chance that a priceless one could be hiding in someone's jar or collection feels real, and that democratizes the dream, making the legend of the $16 million penny even more powerful, because it is not just a story for elite collectors but also for everyday dreamers who hope to stumble upon fortune. And as we analyze deeper, we see that the combination of dramatic errors, rarity of high-grade survivors, historical transition in composition, passionate demand, and the allure of chance all merge to explain why the 1984 penny has achieved such legendary valuations. And while not every example will sell for millions, the existence of a handful that have crossed into this rarefied territory is enough to anchor the myth and keep collectors buzzing. And with each passing year, the value of these special coins continues to rise, because as more people become aware and more coins are locked away in permanent collections, the supply of available pieces shrinks, making competition fiercer and prices climb higher. And so when we say that the 1984 1-cent coin can be worth $16 million, we are not just talking about a number but about the culmination of history, error, rarity, demand, and human imagination that together transformed the smallest denomination of American money into one of the most exciting treasures of the modern age. and that is why collectors will always keep searching. Why numismatic auctions will continue to generate headlines, and why this humble penny minted 4 decades ago will live on as a legend in the world of valuable coins.